right?
Spinning.
Crazy. All right, we're on, and you guys are in for a treat. We just did like 20 minutes of pre-show, and I got five.
I gave away all my best stuff, Nick.
I'm trying to hit start just to get it for all of you members. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Nicholas Loise. I'm president of GKIC. I am honored to be with Bryan Kurtz, who is a legendary marketer, one of the nicest guys. He spoke on our stage. I think it was in St. Louis that you spoke on our stage.
I did. I was at Info Summit. That was a treat.
And it was so good. He was on twice. We brought him up with Craig Simpson, a longtime partner of yours. And for those of you that don't know who Bryan is, he's a serial direct marketer. We're going to talk a little bit about direct marketer, direct response, and direct mail, and kind of the terminology for that. 35 years of experience building Boardroom up. It's now referenced to as Bottom Line, and one of the most respectful direct marketers and direct marketing companies in the business. He has mailed close to 2 billion pieces of direct mail. And what was the amount that you used to write for your check for postage?
Yeah, that was in our little riff at the beginning. Yeah. I said I lobbied for postal reform. I don't want to be known as the direct mail guy.
Right.
I love direct mail like Dan does. But I lobbied for postal reform in D.C., and they were wondering why I was sitting there next to National Geographic, AARP, whoever. And I said, well, I spent $22 million in postage last year.
Right.
And so they looked at me and go, whose boardroom like that, But I wasn't bragging. I wear it like I told you, I wear it like a badge of honor that when you're paying $22 million in postage a year, you better be serious about your messaging being great, everything being perfect, which is what I teach now for people who are totally online. It's the same principle.
So let's get into it, but let me do a little bit more preamble so people know kind of who you are. You took Boardroom from 5 million to 150 million. That's real growth there. If you want to find Bryan, and we'll do this also at the end of the thing, but you could find him at legendsbook.com.
No, it's the legendsbook.com.
Legendsbook.com, as well as BryanKurtz.me. I highly recommend it. Everybody go to legendsbook.com, thelegendsbook.com, because he's got a lot of great swipe files. We're going to talk about the importance of swipe files. So let's get into it, because you're the kind of guy that just starts going. So we don't need to do too much preamble. The 40-40-20 rule is really something that, when I was out selling media, when I had my own publications, when I had my own direct response agency, we always talked about the 40-40-20 rule. So why don't you give what that is and talk about the myths and realities of that?
Yeah. So, it's interesting because, it's not an exact science in terms of the number, but it's a great way to kind of frame what we do as marketers and what's important and what's not when we're going out with a promotion or a campaign. So the 40-40-20 rule basically says that the success of any direct response marketing campaign depends 40% on the list, 40% on your offer, and 20% on the creative or the copy. And again, I don't care whether you want to move those numbers around a little bit, but that's the basic rule of thumb. So what I did was recently, I've really been studying it. I've only been studying it for 35 years, but I've been studying it even more lately, having come out of the list business originally, and then writing the book, The Advertising Solution, with Craig Simpson, and seeing that the best copywriters of all time, the Gary Halberts and the Gene Schwartzes, actually talk about lists before they talk about their copy, which is fascinating to me. Fascinating. Like Gary Halbert, it's not about the brilliant burger. It's about the hungry, the starving crowd, right?
Right.
So, and Gene talks about you don't create mass desire. It's already there. You just have to tap into it. So the 40-40-20 rule, I said, I wrote a blog post that was really not controversial, but kind of summarized it. And I said, when 41% is a majority, and I was not talking about a presidential campaign or anything like that. I wasn't being political. But what I did was I said the 40-40-20 rule, I'm going to say it's 41-39-20. And what I mean by that is the 41 is the list, the 39 is the offer, and the 20 is the creative. Now, the thing that I want to emphasize there is that that's not saying, and people who know me, and I'm not bragging, I'm just stating it. It's not bragging if I did it, but I happen to have worked with the best copywriters who've ever lived in the last 50 years. I'm not a great copywriter myself. I know how to write and read, but I'm not a great copywriter. But I've worked with the best of the best: Gary Bencivenga, Jim Rutz, Clayton Makepeace, Gene Schwartz, on and on and on. So it's not saying that the creative is half as important as the offer or the list when I say 40-40-20 for creative. But what it does say is that you could have, and I know this because if I had A+ copy from an A+ copywriter and it went to the wrong list with a mediocre offer, I'm getting zero response, zero. Whereas if I've got a targeted list of potential buyers, a hungry crowd, the kind of stuff that Dan talks about a lot in magnetic marketing, about how you create that hungry list. The interesting thing is that I could throw out crap creative, or in direct mail it could be a postcard, in email it could be 4 lines. But if the list is perfect, or it's an affiliate deal where someone's promoting my product for me, I'm going to make some money, right? I'm going to make something. I'm not going to have zero response. So when I say that, I say, well, why wouldn't we want to spend way more time making sure the list selections are right, the segmentation's right, the research we do in the marketplace is right, before we start thinking about offer and creative? And I can tell you that my entire career at Boardroom, when we wanted to go out with a new product, the first thing we did when we thought of a product, or we did some research, and we can talk about research because Dan talks about it a lot in magnetic marketing, not analysis by paralysis research, but research to make sure that there's a marketplace for what you're going to sell. But what we did is we would do the research, and once we knew there was a product that looked like our audience would want, the first thing we did was went to our list brokers and said, we want the primary, secondary, and tertiary list universes for that product. Here's the product. Here's how we look at it. Here's what we think we're going to sell it for. Don't even have a creative platform yet. And they would give us a binder like that would give us the primary, secondary, tertiary list universes, so we knew how deep we might be able to go to the outside list universe when we already knew that our house list, the people who already bought from us previously, they've been researched, and we know that they want this product. So that would give us the maximum potential. But you can see that it all started with the list. Right. So the 40-40-20 rule, making it 41-39-20, and that's not diminishing the importance of offer, and it's not diminishing the importance of creative. And I'm a slave to all three. But you can see now, just by that quick explanation, that if you've got the list right, and then you put world-class creative on top of it with an irresistible offer, now you got everything cooking in all areas, and that's how you get exponential growth in your business, and you get the best marketing campaigns that you can ever do. And I am a slave to this, that this idea that people want to go hire the copywriter first, or come up with the free offer, et cetera, first. And I say no. Now, the interesting thing is that in the online world, because of the dependence on affiliates, right, that is fascinating to me. And I'm not anti-affiliate, but if you're going to rely your entire marketing campaign on affiliates, that is not free lists. People assume that, I'm not paying for lists, I'm not paying for media. Cool. Well, how many $1 million launches do we know where the person doing the launch ends up keeping $150,000 because they paid 50% to the affiliate? If they have a physical product, they have cost of goods, right, they have overhead, they got to pay for all the infrastructure. So don't tell me about $1 million launches, but tell me about affiliates are great. Someone's mailing for you, just like I told my list about magnetic marketing. I don't do affiliates. I'm giving any commissions I get to hurricane relief, but because I don't do affiliates. But I did want to promote the product because I believe in it, and I believe in Dan, and I believe in GKIC. That's why I'm here. Thank you. I think that, the idea that if affiliate is your own, that is a good list. It's one list source. And we talked in our discussion about Rich Sheffrin. Right. And Rich is one of my buds, and he's going to speak at my mastermind group. And he's got a great quote, which I'm going to get from him later today so I can put it in my blog post this Sunday. But he's got a quote that's something like, you've arrived as a marketer when you actually can pay cash for your media, whatever it is, whether it's a list, email list, whether it's AdWords, whether it's Facebook, I don't care what it is, but that you can pay for it and that you can do an analysis that says that I got a return on investment that was acceptable on that media. With an affiliate, you don't do that analysis, unfortunately.
Right.
So he's not saying he's anti-affiliate either, I don't think. I don't want to put words in his mouth, and I won't. But I think what he's saying is that the idea is to be multi-channel, to find a lot of media sources all the time, and every one of them is a list. You know, I always have this great phrase, there are no unique names, only unique lists. And so you can see that I'm so obsessed with this 41% thing.
Right.
And I've lived it my whole life. My first 10 years at Boardroom, I came out of college. Boardroom was my second job. The first thing I did at Boardroom, the job I fell into, was in-house list management.
Okay.
So you can see that I'm like going back to my roots here. But it's the most important thing. I mean, I didn't make it the most important thing. I just got lucky that the thing that I was selling for 10 years were these amazing boardroom lists that everybody in the direct mail community wanted to mail. So now I got like exposure to the best direct marketers in the world, from Reader's Digest to Money Magazine, to All Timing, to political fundraisers, everybody, and how they selected my list, how I segmented it for them, and how I could even give them suggestions on envelope tests and things like copy tests that they might want to do with my list. By the way, internet marketers did not invent affiliate deals.
Right.
You know, Reader's Digest was selling insurance,
Right.
and AARP was selling insurance or whatever in the 1960s and 70s. So, you know, those were endorsed mailings, and that, I'm not being grandpa here. What I am saying is that the original source to everything that's awesome on the internet today has its roots in traditional direct response marketing. And if you understand the original source, you will only go deeper and more profoundly into all of the online techniques that are available today. And that's what my book's about with Craig. My book is about the legends and how it applies.
Yeah, it was funny. I was having this argument, not really argument. We're talking with one of our partners, and he said, "Well, you know, Tripwire, and that was invented by so and so," and I won't name the name. I never said.
Yeah, I hate the term.
But I said Tripwire is nothing more than a a self-liquidating lead that happened in the 1900s, probably happened in the 1800s. If you're a student of advertising, you just realize we're just taking these old direct response, whatever we want to call it, skills and techniques and bringing them to the modern world. So let's talk a little bit about that.
Let me just say one thing, Nick. I just got to say this because I got to get on my soapbox for a second.
Please.
Words matter. Words matter. And direct marketing, one of my big things, and I know Dan is a big fan of this too, customer service and fulfillment and what you do on the back end and how you talk to your customers and how you treat your customers, those are all marketing functions.
Right.
All marketing functions. So if you start off, and again, I don't want to get, I know it's semantic for some people, but if you're thinking about the term tripwire,
okay,
that I'm going to trip, my best potential customer is going to trip over a wire and explode.
Right.
That will reduce your lifetime value of that customer. I guarantee it, if they're dead. Right.
Right.
So it matters because now we're starting to think, and it's sort of like, it's sort of like the internet marketer that I heard speak not too long ago gets up in front of a big room, and the first slide is, and I'm going to just use a little profanity if it's okay.
Sure.
It's like, but the slide said it. It said how to sell more shit to more people.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And if and he actually had a good offer, and he was not a bad marketing guy.
Right.
But it matters because if you start looking at, remember I said, not only there are no unique names, only unique lists.
Right.
And if you don't, and if you don't look at your lists as people, you're not going to start on the right foot as a marketer. So I'm not going to belabor the point, but it's really important that, we look at what we're doing, not as altruistic. We all want to make money,
sure,
but we want to look at it as something that is part of our vision, our passion. And if you're not going to, love what you do and then love the people that buy from you and that are your best customers, then I say shame on you. And it's not somebody I would ever want to work with. It's not somebody I would ever want in my mastermind groups, etc. So I just have to say that.
No, it's good stuff. But let's talk a little bit about, before we get into some other stuff, I want to set the table straight. We talked about in the preamble, which was really good stuff, that, the difference in really, direct mail, direct response, and really media's media. So let's set the record straight right now, because there may be people that jump on the saying, well, I don't want to talk about it because it's only direct mail. We're not talking about
No, we're not talking about direct mail today. I mean, I want to look, there's a whole module in magnetic marketing on direct mail. So
Right.
it's still important. It still works. But, I don't want to go there for this part of the discussion. Where I will go is that, first of all, if you're a marketer who thinks that the term direct marketing is synonymous with direct mail, you're wrong. Direct marketing, I mean, when I got into the business, the Direct Marketing Association started off being the Direct Mail Marketing Association. They changed to the Direct Marketing Association to encompass more media, like TV, radio, package inserts, all kinds of print, etc. So the difference, fast forward to today, I always quote this venture capitalist I met in New York, investment banker, and he said to me, when we were talking about buying and selling media companies, and he said, man, advertising opportunities are now infinite. And I thought about that quote, and it's fascinating to me because, back in the day, and again, I'm not doing any of this. I'm not doing this podcast or this interview, or I don't do anything to take a stroll down memory lane. That's not my premise when I talk about the past. I talk about the past because it makes us understand the present and the future that much deeper. And I'm a big fan of only going a mile deep, not a mile wide. And to go a mile deep, you have to know where it came from. You got to know where babies come from. You really do. And it really helps you. It'll help you with your Facebook advertising to know how Reader's Digest did regression modeling in the 1960s. Guaranteed. Knowing how to do a lookalike model on Facebook, if you understood what we did at Boardroom with regression modeling and Reader's Digest did and Rodale Press did, you will have a better understanding. So, back to the media and the buying and direct marketing, it's all direct marketing. In fact, I bought the first URL I bought when I was buying URLs like 5 years ago was it's alldirectmarketing.com.
Okay.
I think I might still own it, or I might have gotten rid of it. I don't know. But, the thing is, so now I had to go to direct response. When I did my Titans event that Dan spoke at, I called it the Titans of direct response. And he and I talked about that. Because if I said it was the Titans of direct marketing, Dan said, and we both said at the same time, oh man, people think that's only direct mail.
Right.
Because we had Dan speak and we had Perry Marshall speak, the Google AdWords, guru, besides being an amazing marketer. But we also had Joe Sugarman. We also had Jay Abraham. We also had Kim McCarthy. We also had Gary Bensavenga, who wrote mostly in direct mail. But then we got Fred Katona, who is a great GKAC guy. May he rest in peace. Just amazing. But he was radio, direct response radio. We had Greg Renker, right, direct response TV. So it's really about the multi-channel. So, I always quote, I have this great quote from Bill Bernbach, which is in the forward of my book. And it's Bill Bernbach, the great advertising guy, he was one of the madmen. And what he said was, never adapt your technique to the idea, adapt your idea to the technique. So the idea is to have the idea, have the big idea, figure out what it is, where those people live, where the lists are. I mean, this is what Dan talks about in magnetic marketing. The great marketers drive around the neighborhood and see, the real estate guy and see what they look like. What do these people look like? And so you decide that, and then you decide where they live. Like what lakes are you going to fish in for those people? But and then it could be, the technique could be Facebook, it could be direct mail, it could be radio, it could be, Penny Saver and Valpak, whatever. It could be anything. But you don't start with, man, Facebook's huge, I got to get on Facebook. No, don't go there. You may go on Facebook, and Facebook is a great media source. I mean, it's so huge. But again, for certain B2B offers, like if I'm going to try to sell a $15,000 or $25,000 mastermind, I'm not doing any kind of, I'm not trying to get traffic from Facebook, frankly. Right. I want to do a webinar like this, like an Ask Me Anything webinar, and get people to see who I am, what I have to offer, and they're either going to shut me off, and they're never going to join my mastermind anyway, or they're going to buy a book from me. They're going to do something. They like what I have to offer, and I'm going to build it that way. And, Dan teaches this better than anybody. But, that's where Dan and I are so in sync, and why I'm here to talk about magnetic marketing as well. But I think that the point regarding media is that, to think about if direct response marketing gets you to think about multi-channel and not just direct mail, great. I got to do something, because as soon as I say direct mail at an internet conference, half the room turns me off, and I'm fine with it. But I'm just so pleased. I was so pleased to see that there's a whole module on direct mail in magnetic marketing, but it's not module 1. I think it's module 3.
It's at the end. And the important thing, and you and I were talking about this, we said for today's, let's say, traditional business, brick and mortar business, Main Street business, or even service business, direct mail may be too difficult to acquire new customers, may be too costly to acquire new customers, and they may have to go to other traditional sources.
Yeah, I mean, I just wrote a blog post last week about this exact topic. I called it the one about the used car salesman. Okay. And it was really about somebody I think I met at a GKIC event. And basically, his direct mail were postcards, telling people within a 30-mile radius of his lot what new cars came in every week.
Okay.
And I thought that's a little costly, because now you're on an episodic event, buying a used car, and it's like target practice. When are you going to hit the bullseye when I'm ready to buy in a used car and there's one on the lot that I like, as opposed to what Dan talks about with special reports and what I talk about with creating information and becoming the expert in your field and then sell the product. And the other example I gave was a personal injury attorney. I know you had Ben Glass on.
Sure.
Same thing. Ben Glass didn't want to chase, injured people in accidents. He wanted to have people come to him because he was a trusted source, a trusted authority. And so if you're going to do direct mail for acquisition, it is costly. What I think in that postcard, you might want to get them into an online funnel of some sort, meaning, go here, get the special report on the squeeze page, opt into my email list. I'll send you a tip every week. Then you're in an information marketing thing. You're developing a relationship. And I love the phrase, everything is not a revenue event, but everything is a relationship event, especially online, because it is so cheap. This is where we can use the cheaper media and not be lazy. So the idea is to develop that relationship, and then when they're ready to buy a used car, they'll come to you, et cetera, et cetera. Or you may not get them on the accident that you've got their name from on a list, but because you're an authority in personal injury, the next time they come, they're going to think of you because you'll be giving them information every week. I don't know that mailing direct mail right off the top. I mean, I know that Dan has that the 3-letter approach, which is really, really good. And I think you can use that, but you got to have a little more money to do that. It's not super expensive if you're in a regional business. So I wouldn't say absolutely no way, no how you should do direct mail, but you got to know what you're doing, because you can waste a lot of paper and postage on stuff that's not going to be effective if you don't know what you're doing. That's why you need sort of the stuff that Dan talks about, the stuff I talk about in my book, the stuff in Dick Benson's classic book on direct mail. There are some basic things you need to know, but there's so much you can do in terms of acquisition that has nothing to do with direct mail. But then don't forget about direct mail. Direct mail is so awesome on the back end. And so I did an interview with Joe Polish called Everyone's Going Right, Time to Go Left. And it was about direct mail, the emptier mailboxes and all the obvious stuff. But we got into some deep discussion about, and this interview is on my website at bryankurtz.me. It's I think it's called Everyone's Going Right, Time to Go Left. And so Joe and I talked about how you use direct mail on the back end, even on a completely 100% online business. And that's really powerful.
Right.
This is where, you start ending up with, and I'm going to talk about this in terms of lifetime value in my blog post this week, that you end up with, of your, 10,000 people on your list, you have 100 or so that are spending a ton of money with you those are the people that you're sending FedEx packages to, and that's direct mail. That's the shock and awe. You guys are great at GKIC. You get the 3D guy there, and the lumpy mail and all of that. That's where direct mail is just killer, because now it's a total differentiator. No one's doing that,
right,
except the people that are being trained by GKIC.
Right.
So, and by me, I'm much smaller, but in my small groups, and anybody who's following me online knows that, I'm echoing all of the stuff that you teach and what Dan teaches. So, it is important to differentiate the different media choices. Advertising opportunities are now infinite. And the only thing I'll say about this that's really, really critical for anybody in marketing today is that I call it the dangers of one-stop shopping. I think that because advertising opportunities are now infinite, which I believe, and I believe in specialization over generalization always. I believe in, specialists over commodity, specialty over commodity all the time. I would say run, don't walk away from anyone who says I can handle all of your online marketing needs, or I can handle everything soup to nuts in direct mail. Now, it so happens that my co-author of my book, Craig Simpson, who's awesome, can handle a lot of your direct mail because he can do all the production and merge purge. But even Craig, by his own admission, he and I work together on a bunch of projects. If the company is doing something national and it's something that's a very competitive marketplace, we want to get world-class creative as opposed to, a workman-like copywriter. Craig knows that he can work with me, and then together we will find, something better on the copy side, and also we'll do more deep digging on the list, so that, while he can handle soup to nuts, you need to know which pieces you might want to get that extra specialty. And so that's true even in a situation where Craig is almost one-stop shopping for direct mail. It's a good example. But there are situations where you want to do a la carte. And I think that in most cases, forget about direct mail now. Let's go to, I want to do Facebook, AdWords, Amazon, LinkedIn. I love that. I saw there's a stuff in magnetic marketing about LinkedIn. That's awesome. But all of those are media choices, and I think you got to separate them. That's why with my mastermind group, when I bring in guest speakers, I don't bring in an online marketing expert. I bring in an expert on a particular thing. So I had, Josh Turner, the expert on LinkedIn. I had Farouk Shroff and Nicholas Kuzmich, the experts on Facebook.
At Info Summit.
Say it again.
Nicholas is speaking at Info Summit.
Nicholas is awesome, but he's also not ready to say that he's an expert on everything. He's starting to do he's branching out, but he became the expert. He went a mile deep in Facebook before he thought about going a mile wide in other online media. And that's what I respect most about a guy like Nicholas, and also why you want to go to a guy like that for Facebook, right? So, and then, even on direct mail, which I'm an expert at, when I have my mastermind in Cleveland, Dan is going to be there next April. I'm having Craig come, and let Craig do a module for my guys on direct mail, because he's as good as it gets on that. But at that same one, I've got Robin Robbins coming. Robin Robbins is the expert on, in this case, on so many things. Right. I mean, she rocked the stage at Info Summit.
Another Info Summit speaker. Did you? I mean,
I was there when she made more money, and wasn't about making money, but she did a thing on sponsorships that just rocked the room. Yep. And so sponsorships is a media source. So I think, I mean, I'm getting diarrhea of the mouth here. I apologize, but
that's right.
Media is, advertising opportunities are infinite. Don't be fooled by anyone that says they can handle everything in one-stop shopping, and you really want specialists, not generalists, and you want to try to incorporate online and offline so that you can weave in and out. I call it O to O to O. I'll have a whole section of this in my new book, and I think really important.
Let me ask you a question. I'll let you take a sip of water. Let everybody see your coffee mug too, if you want to do that.
Oh yes, here's my coffee mug. Gene Schwartz is my homeboy, and David Ogilvy has my back. Ogilvy and Schwartz are two of my two of the legends that Craig and I profile in our book.
Love it.
Yeah.
So why RFM, and why are they the three most important letters for any marketer?
So it fascinates me, and I don't really know. I mean, I don't really know how many people listening to this or watching this know when they hear RFM, they know exactly what I'm talking about. But it's astounded me that I've spoken on a lot of different stages with people who are world-class copywriters, who are, somewhat seasoned direct marketers of some sort, mostly online. And when I say RFM, they don't know what I'm talking about. Now, the good ones are already practicing RFM, but I think if they understood it at the deepest level, they would start thinking about other ways they could be marketing to their list, both house and outside. So briefly, RFM stands for recency, frequency, and monetary value. By recency, we mean, someone who bought from you more recently is worth more than someone who bought from you less recently. So someone who bought from you 6 months ago is not as valuable as someone who bought from you 3 weeks ago, which was actually funny because when I came into the business in 1981 and I started learning about what this idea of recency, in direct mail, you pay a premium for what they call hotlines.
Sure.
And hotlines are people who bought usually in the last month or last 3 months. And I said, that doesn't make sense. If they bought from me a month ago and now I'm selling them again, aren't they out of money and they can't buy more? Like, that's how stupid I was, right? And so, everybody watching this, listening to this now says, wow, Bryan is a lot stupider than I thought.
Right.
And so, but recency, the idea of cross-sell, upsell, I mean, it's a way of life for us as marketers online and offline. So the idea of recency is just so obvious. But then you combine it with F, which is frequency. And now the person who bought 6 months ago and bought 3 weeks ago is as valuable as anybody you've got on your list. We used to call those multi-buyers, right. And we charge the premium for those in direct mail. And anybody who's buying multiple products and they have some recency and built in, those will always go to the top of any model that you do that's a list model that you're mailing out. This is what we did in direct mail. Any list model you do, names that are recent and frequent, meaning multi-buyers that have bought from you recently, will always go to the top of the model of the most obvious people that you should mail for the next product, always. And so that premise alone should tell you that if you have a small online list, you should start segmenting by recency and frequency. And then monetary is important because everybody's got different price points in their product line. So monetary is the total amount spent by that customer. So it might be that someone who hasn't bought from you in the last few months, but has a total monetary that's higher than a lot of other people on your list, they might want to be treated differently in terms of copy. Hey, we haven't heard from you in a while, but we know you've bought boom, 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 boom. Now you've got someone that you want to invest in because they spent a lot of money with you, but they haven't spent a lot of money with you recently or frequently. So what's that about? And let's talk to them like that. There's a whole thing, like one of the biggest breakthroughs in our business at Boardroom, we had a newsletter, Bottom Line Personal. And I'm embarrassed to even say that this was a breakthrough. But we actually, your best list for subscriptions is your expire list.
Right.
So people who expired from Bottom Line Personal, they didn't expire because they hated our gut. Some people might have, but they usually expire for 2 reasons. Not enough time, not enough money. Right. So the time is like, I can't read your newsletter. I can't keep up with it. This is a print newsletter that comes out twice a month, Bottom Line Personal. Or they didn't see the value. It's like they saw the charge of $39 and I'm not getting my money's worth because I call it the file cabinet pile up. They're piling up on my file cabinet and I don't read them. And then when the breakthrough was taking the control direct mail package that we mailed to them, and on the outside it just said, we want you back.
Okay.
And the whole premise was, we love you. You're part of our family. We miss you. Where are you? Look what you're missing out on. That lifted response by, 30, 40% the first time we did it. And I'm embarrassed to say that almost. But to not talk to them differently. So that would be someone who could be, you could say, were maybe a frequent but not a recent, or maybe they were 3-time renewals. Right. Who haven't renewed in the last 2 years. So that would be a high monetary for our company. I mean, $100 was a lot of money to spend, 3 years for a $30 newsletter. So the monetary was high. So that name would come high up on a model when we're mailing to expires because they were the most responsive to an offer to re-engage them and get them to subscribe again. So you can see what I'm talking about here is the possibilities are endless if you're a creative marketer. Just looking at your list, no matter how small it is. I don't care if your list is like 50 or 100 people or it's 2,000. I mean, I don't do a lot of one-on-one consulting, but what I do when I do it for friends, and sometimes they'll donate the money to charity. That's not part of my business model really. But when I do it, the first thing we do is something I learned from Jay Abraham, which is you assess your assets.
Yeah.
His great book is, how to get everything you have out of all you got, which is my favorite Abraham book. Jay's one of my mentors. I'm hoping that he's going to write the forward to my new book. Someone I've known since the 80s. And Jay says, what do you got? Like, what do you have? And so the first thing I do with a new client is like, what do you have? And so I always go right to the list, of course. Right. So if they have any names at all, I don't care if it's an email list. Let's try to, opt them into some kind of content, relationship building that's more than just an email list. If you already have a list, let's see if there are pockets in there of segments. I mean, one of the questions I always ask for someone, especially in B2B, is when they're trying to figure out like what the sub niche might be, is I say things like, again, this sounds so stupid when I say it, but it's so obvious. Who writes you the biggest checks? Like who's written you the biggest checks? And right. Then what do those people have in common? I mean, I'm talking about someone who has a list of like 30 people.
Right.
And I'll give you an example, financial planner.
Okay.
Who invests the most money with you of your 30 clients? They give me the 5 that give them the most money, right? And then we look at what those 5 people have in common. What if 3 of them I'm making this up, but right. What if 3 of them are lawyers? Why don't we do a promotion for lawyers?
Right.
Again, it's like, and this will sound real, again, this stuff is such common sense, but if you understand RFM at its roots, your imagination can run wild. Why wouldn't I want to create a product for lawyers only on investment specifically for lawyers? Is the thing on the back end that I'm delivering going to be the same that I might deliver for accountants or chiropractors? Sure. But now my messaging is so much different. And I learned that by diving deep into my list in terms of recency, frequency, and monetary. So the idea is that you don't even know who's living on your list that might be the niche that you should go after and explode on, as opposed to, and I write a lot about this. What did I write about? I know it was about niche. I forgot what the subject line of that blog post was, but it was sort of like, don't own the world, own a niche and then branch out, narrow to wide. It's just such an important concept, and it's true in everything. And that's why I think Dan and GKIC and magnetic marketing is so important, because it emphasizes owning a niche. Like when Dan talks about one of the great examples he has in magnetic marketing is when he talks about the mailings that financial planners do that are all lookalike.
Oh, yeah.
2 tickets to a steak dinner at the local hotel, right. And then I'm going to pitch the hell out of you. It works. I understand it works. But what about like a whole different thing that just looks so different? Differentiation is everything to me. If I've got a commoditized product, the idea is to turn that commodity into a specialty. And that's what my blog post last week was about when I talked about the used car salesman and I talked about the personal injury attorney. And I was thinking about this particular interview with you when I wrote that, because Dan has changed the lives of anybody in those kinds of service businesses. He turned like chiropractors into information marketers. He turned dentists into information marketers. Yeah. And more people source their marketing education to Dan than any. I mean, Jay's up there too, but Dan is just one of those guys. And so, being a student, I'm still a student. I'm 37 years in, but I'm still a student. And I'll always be a student. And this stuff, obviously by how much I've been able to talk without breathing tells you how passionate I am about it.
Bryan, let's talk about another acronym, right? Because we're big on acronyms. But lifetime value, or I guess, or LTV. I beat you to the punchline on that, and why it's not something that you watch on YouTube.
Yeah, in fact, that's going to be the subject line of my blog post this week. It's going to. I just wrote it down before this call. I wrote LTV is not a new YouTube channel,
Okay.
and this is the concept of getting rich slow, and it sounds terrible. David Bach talks about this in his books on getting rich slowly, or getting rich the right way. Finish rich, I think, is his moniker.
Not rich or something like that.
Yeah, I love David Bach's stuff. So the idea that I'll tell it like this. Boardroom, as mentioned, we grew. Probably when I got there in 1981, we probably were around 5 million. At our height in the mid 2000s, when we got on TV and then incorporated our infomercial with direct mail, with online, we increased our revenues in 1 year. By then before we got on TV, we were probably at 70 or 80 million. And then once we got on TV and then incorporated this multi-channel approach, we immediately got the business to about 157 million.
Wow.
So it's fascinating to me that it was all about, and so even in the days where we were struggling, getting from 5 to 30 to 50 and figuring out cash flow and all the things that most businesses go through, I used to sit with Marty Edelston, who was the founder of Boardroom, my mentor, like a second dad to me. And we used to sit and look at the financials of the company, and we would look at where all the money was coming from. And we would look at, our book sales, which were good. 45% of the business was from one-shot books and annual books, mostly in the health and financial area, consumer area. We looked at the newsletter subscriptions, and all of our newsletters was another 55% of the business. But then we started looking at where the profit margin was coming from, and where the real, like, what was paying the rent and what was the cash flow. And it was actually in the renewals to bottom line personal. Okay. And so Marty looked at me and said, we're in the business of bottom line personal renewals. And what that did for us, by just that one line, that we're in the business of bottom line personal renewals, second year, conversion is called the first renewal, and then second year is called the renewal. So when we started realizing how much we should or could lose in year one to make it back in year two, that changed the business completely. We called it our bogey. It's an expression from the great Dick Benson, who was one of the, a direct mail guru and a mentor of mine. And he talks about, without the bogey, you're going nowhere. And so let me fast forward to an example. So anyway, that's the lifetime value. And we started realizing that everything we did in terms of new subscriber acquisition was based on that bogey, how much we could afford to lose in year one, and then decide how long it was going to take to make it back. And that was the beginning of a real lifetime value calculation. Then we threw in how many of those subscribers actually bought a book from us. And then we put that into the calculation too, without getting crazy. And so now we knew like what we would want to lose in year one. And this goes back to Sheffrin's point. How much can you spend on your media to make it back, which is classic direct marketing. But then once you have some cash flow and a little bit of cash in the bank, now you invest, because you have a real handle on the lifetime value numbers. So let me fast forward to an example that I saw in a mastermind group that I'm a member of. And the guy was advertising on Facebook, and his welcome mat, not tripwire, welcome mat was a $10 special report, we'll say. I don't have the exact details on this, but this basic. Sure. So $10 special report. And all of his competitors have a $10 special report. And he was watching them, and they go on with the $10 special report, and they'd be gone in weeks, because their calculation was based on the fact that they were spending not that much for the Facebook ads, but they were such cold leads that on a $10 book, they couldn't make their money back on the advertising on that first $10 book. So lo and behold, they got out because they don't understand LTV.
Right.
My guy who was doing the presentation said, yeah, this thing seems so stupid to me. This is like 3 years ago. So this is like early Facebook when people were really starting to advertise a lot. Maybe it was 2.5 years ago, but people were not rampantly advertising on Facebook when this presentation was given to me. And he started showing what his funnel was from the $10 special report to the upgrade was a physical product, I think. And then it went to a little bit of coaching program on the thing that the $10 special report was about. And eventually he started doing analysis that, his average order was $78. And so then he calculated the $78 average order against the people that converted from the 10. And he started figuring out, what was he figuring out? He was figuring out a lifetime value calculation. So now all of a sudden he probably doubled or tripled or quadrupled his advertising spend on Facebook, because now he knew he had some metrics that told him how much he was willing to spend. And this is a very personal decision on the business owner. But whatever it is, if you want to make money on the first $10 product on Facebook, good luck. But if you want to at least go out, to a second purchase and then calculate that in based on the number of people that convert, your spend should be able to go up, and you're not looking at break even on the $10 product. So that's a very simple example of the magnitude. And you put this in. Let me go backwards again. We were a 50 at the time when Marty and I were doing these calculations on bottom line renewals. We were very early. This was way before we were 150 million. This is when we were, maybe a $30 million business, and our margins were tight. Our cash flow was tight, but we knew that for the long haul, to have a business that was going to stand the test of time, we better have our arms around this lifetime value calculation and how the renewal calculation figured in to how we did with our new acquisition for subscribers. So that's like a few minutes on the importance of lifetime value, but it should be obvious to everybody when we said the importance of lifetime value. And I'm hoping that those examples were illustrative of what I'm talking about. And I will talk about those in particular in my blog post. And let me go to the other end, the high ticket B2B person. Sure. I had another client or friend who had a business that had a $20,000 coaching program. And I asked them, the first question was, what's your renewal rate? Like, how many people, hang out for a year and then leave you versus what's your average stick rate? It was like 3 years. Wow. So now you've got like this big group of people that are actually spending $60,000 a year with you. And I got to tell you, I'm not going to say who it is, and I'm not going to, tell tales out of school. But the thing that blew me away was that they weren't investing in marketing as if they had a $60,000 buyer. They were investing as if they had probably less than a $20,000 buyer, because they were afraid they needed to break even on that first marketing campaign, and they wouldn't spend on elaborate direct mail, for example. Man, I'm going to do direct mail in Federal Express packages with free books to someone who's potentially a $60,000 buyer. I'm being, I'm giving you the high end of this, and I'm going to calculate that. I mean, I just gave someone, I spoke at an event for a niche business just recently, and guy cornered me in the bathroom where I come up with my best marketing ideas, but I'm forced to, because he's asking me in the next urinal, like explaining to me, that he's got a list of 26 people that are potentially all, six-figure contracts that he can do. And I'm saying to him, and you're not creating a relationship with them before you're ready to pitch them on the $250,000 contract. And the contract renews once a year. We'll call it, let's say it's in March. I said, what are you doing in October to send them a FedEx package with a book that applies to their industry or whatever, with a handwritten note saying, I'll be in touch with you later on, about, a contract, and whether you do or not, I really wanted to have this book because I know you're changing worlds and changing lives with what you're doing. And, it's really important for me to send this to you. It's a simple example, but you're creating revenue later, as opposed to, you don't want to get rich quick. You want to get rich slowly. and especially if it's high ticket. So I wanted to give that example too.
So that's interesting because I think it's spot on, obviously. But one of the things, I think people don't think that way. They don't want to make the spend. They don't want to make the investment. They just, it's just not. I mean, because we always say you make a sale to get a customer, right? And you have to spend up front, and nurture the relationship to get the customer and to make the sale. And to me, I mean, is it just that we're just as business owners they're just trying to get the cheapest customers as possible, and therefore those are the worst customers to get. We were talking a little bit on the preamble about Facebook, and it's really, really cheap. Yeah, but you got to look at the source, and maybe we could talk a little bit about source.
Yeah. You want to track lifetime value by source? Absolutely, because we used to track lifetime value by individual list in direct mail.
Okay.
Like we would know how much we could lose on a particular list versus another list because the conversion rate on one list was not as good as another. But going back to your question, so that's very important. But going back to your question, I think that, sometimes it's a cash flow issue. I got to tell you,
Sure.
Sometimes, that, and I understand that. And you can't,
right.
We've all been there. We all know that we, might not be able to invest. But a thought went into my mind and went back out, but it'll come back. But I think that it's not that people are lazy. It's not that they don't want to invest, but I think if you start with the premise that people refund transactions, not relationships,
okay, then
you can start at a point that says this is not about a transaction. This is about a long-term relationship. In the classic direct marketing book that I used as a textbook when I taught Direct Marketing 101 at an undergraduate university course. It was Bob Stone's book.
Sure. Yeah, a great book.
Successful Direct Marketing Methods. Yeah. And right at the beginning of that book, it's like, no direct marketing business can succeed without repeat business. And yeah, I mean, pretty obvious again. But if you're not thinking about what's product 2 and 3 and 4, then you're in a transaction business, one-shot deal. So some people can't think about it because they don't have the follow-up products in mind when they're launching, the first product. So that's part of it. Cash flow's part of it. I think not thinking about original source. I think you hit on something really important there. I think that, knowing that if you're tracking by source, by the time you've tested AdWords, Facebook, direct mail, radio, TV, and you start tracking the lifetime of those customers, you'll start seeing a pattern that says the guys I got from radio after they heard me on a show, if that's one of your methodologies, on a talk show or, some kind of information show, and those people converted at a much higher rate, you're going to go do more radio and spend more money there and maybe offer to pay for it when you were getting it for free. And on Facebook, you might be looking at, leads that just didn't convert. And, I think that, you might not spend more money there, or you might spend it differently there, or you might target better there based on other things you learn. Going back to my other point, if you did the other analysis of analyzing your list, and one of the criteria, I don't know if you can, I don't know this for a fact, if you can select by profession on Facebook, but I'll use it as an example.
Sure.
But if you decided that the people who are writing you the biggest checks, 3 out of 5 were lawyers, that might not have been a criteria you were putting onto your Facebook lookalike model. It might be a bad example, or you might find that people with kids, I don't know what,
right.
I haven't done a lot of advertising on Facebook. I just know they do lookalike models. They do have a lot of selection criteria, and you don't want to be lazy. That goes back to list selection. So you don't want to be lazy with that either.
Well, and one of the important things on magnetic marketing is that like you said, we have in the magnetic internet marketing, right? We talk about the importance of Facebook and Bryan Hahn, one of our subject matter experts, goes deep into that and how to create lookalike groups and how to maximize that. We talk about LinkedIn, how to do direct response marketing on magnetic marketing. This great conversation. Hopefully those that are watching are getting a lot of good content. That's our goal. That's our, we want to build a relationship as we as we said in this conversation. But we want you to also invest, right? So if you just click the button off to the right that says, I want to purchase Magnetic Marketing or buy now, or give us a call, 1-800-871-0147. Once again, 1-800-871-0147. Magnetic Marketing, we talked about it, Bryan, in the beginning. This book, this product is something that everybody is in sync with, that we all have on our bookshelves, the original one.
I do have the original, yes.
Right, and it's, it's
I think the original was on cassettes, wasn't it?
It was. I have the original one. I bought it in 1994 on cassette. So it's the system where we teach you how to do it. We provide you a ton of copyright-free direct mail pieces, Facebook ads, freestanding inserts.
Power swipe files.
Right? So you just put this in your computer and you just need to change it a little bit. And the most important thing where you and I probably get the most excitement about is the vault, which is all the swipe files. And we're going to talk a little bit about the importance of swipe files. So I'm going to flip it over to you, but this has got everything here. So you talked about the restaurant, we call it the Giorgio letter. So it's in here, the actual Giorgio letter. Then there's samples of people that have used their version of the Giorgio letter. And you don't want to start from scratch, from a blank piece of paper when you're doing an ad. You want to just look for stuff that works. And the beautiful thing of our swipe file is we've asked everybody to give us the results, right? Because like you did a great example of the guy on Facebook. Well, everybody else got off of it, but he realized there was a back end. So we asked for results. Now, we don't share the results in here because that wouldn't be fair to the business owners, but we have made sure that what is in here has been tested and vetted and true. So let's segue into the importance of swipe files. What's your thoughts? Do you think?
Yeah, and I'll just add on. I'm not going to do any pitch,
right?
Or I don't have to, because here speaks for itself, Nick. I don't do affiliate deals. I sometimes give somebody's link. If I do it, I give all the money I make in commissions to some kind of charity. In this case, I'm doing it for hurricane relief. I did what I did in my blog post 2 weeks ago or last week. 2 weeks ago, I gave away the presentation that Dan Kennedy did at my Titans of Direct Response event, which was part of a $2,000 product.
Right.
I just gave it away, and I said it's an hour and a half. It's brilliant, obviously. And then in the PS, I said, look, I bought Magnetic Marketing when I was a lad,
right.
And this updated version is better than ever. And here's my affiliate link. And if you buy it from me, I'm not saying to buy it from me now, but they should buy it from you. But buy it from me, and I was going to give the money away. The fact that I don't do affiliate deals, and yet I needed to be involved in this process, both with you today and that Dan is a speaker at my upcoming mastermind, and you can see my link. Maybe one day you'll ask me to speak at Info Summit again.
Oh yeah, I'm going to invite you because it's funny. We're talking about everybody that you've mentioned is speaking at Info Summit, so I need you there just to.
I'd like to come back
and get all the good.
I'd love to come back. Love to come back.
We'll get you there.
So anyway, so let's just talk quickly about the power of swipes. I mean, when I did the Titans of Direct Response event, Dan spoke and created a book of swipes of some of his best work that he had never put together before in one volume. And then in addition, I gave away the 30 best direct mail packages that Boardroom ever mailed, which probably mailed well over 1 billion pieces of mail. And that would be 1 billion pieces of successful direct mail. And so, I'm a big believer in stealing is a felony, stealing art, stealing is a felony, stealing smart is an art. And so you don't just, plug and play, but you start getting copy platforms that have worked in the past and adapt them to your industry or, your area. There's nothing more valuable than that. There's not one. So anyway, at Titans, I gave away over 1,000 pages of swipe files, the 30 best Boardroom packages, plus Dan's book, I think Dan's book was like 270 pages and mine was over 800. It was something like that. It was like 1,100 pages total. And I gave away hard copy. I gave away the discs too, but I gave away hard copy. Because if you're a seasoned copywriter or marketer, you actually want the hard copy. You don't need it to be able to play. I love the fact that you have it on a USB stick and you can plug and play and you can do all that. So the beauty of it is, again, original source. There's a lot of stuff that you don't have to reinvent the wheel. lot of copy platforms. I noticed a lot of the headlines in magnetic marketing that Dan was touting. Like, for example, he had a whole list of them. One was for chiropractors, one was for lawyers, and they all had numbers in the headline. 12 things that you should know, 5 things you should do. That's like, that's 101 copy, being specific. And so some of the best controls we ever had at Boardroom, the 10-cent tummy tuck. We had the 10-cent cholesterol cure. We had, 1,743 things that, the smiling swindlers are lying to you about. And the smiling swindlers being your accountant, your lawyer, because we were consumer protection type of direct mail, a little paranoid, but the beauty of it, just putting more specificity into your headlines alone, and then looking how other people did it. We have one package in our swipe file, which was for an estate planning book. Talk about a subject that you would say, wow, that's not all that exciting. Who wants to talk about estate planning, But we had, breakthrough packages with things like, an outer envelope, and the only thing on it was deeply and irrevocably personal. And I told a story in a past blog post of how that came to be from the great Bill Jamie, who's one of the great copywriters of all time. And so you could use deeply and irrevocably personal on anything, right? Sure. And then it was like the headline on that was something like there were 2 headlines that we used that were big controls. One was what your lawyer didn't tell you when you made out your will. And then another one was what never to tell your husband that, or something like that. So we, think about how you can adapt that. What never to tell your blank when you're doing blank. Sure. What never to, what someone who's a credible source, what your blank, let's say you're Ben Glass. What the last personal injury attorney never would tell you about what you really need to know when you get into an accident. It's a variation on a theme that is about, how information marketers, and you can get a lot of that done for you. I don't like, there are some programs out there that are good, but they're like a plug and play, where it's like fill in the blank. It's like Mad Libs. I don't know if anybody remembers Mad Libs, but you plug in the word or the key phrase or whatever, and then you're constructing copy in a kind of a mechanical way. I still think you need to come from your gut, and you still need to put your passion into your writing, into your headlines, into your subject lines. But man, why not get a head start? Right. And I don't know any great copywriter. There's one exception. When I did the Titans event, I put the 4 top copywriters on stage that were responsible for 650 million pieces of successful direct mail for Boardroom over like 20 years. And they were 4 guys who were like the second generation. I call them my second Mount Rushmore. My first Mount Rushmore were Gary Bencivenga, Jim Rutz, Gene Schwartz, and a guy by the name of Mel Martin. That was the early days of Boardroom. Then once we got past, 1990 or so, 95, it was Paris Lampropoulos, David Deutsch, Eric Betwell, and Arthur Johnson. And I think Clayton Makepeace, who was a speaker at Info Summit, could have been on there, but he didn't do as much as those 4 for Boardroom. But anyway, there's a bunch of writers. So what was interesting is that I never met a writer of all of those guys. Let's say those 8 plus Clayton plus a few others, except one, Eric Betchel, doesn't have a swipe file. But the copywriters, Paris Lampropoulos has file cabinets. The reason why he has an office outside of his house, I think, is to store his swipe files. And yes, you could store them on digitally. I was going to say microfilm and really date myself. On digital files, but there's nothing more valuable to a world-class copywriter than to have a filing system that can direct them to all of the best direct mail on all of the topics that they might want to write on now and in the future. So if the world-class copywriters are working with that, why shouldn't the marketers as well? And so I hope I made the case for the value of swipe files, which is a big part of your product.
I think you did. And I'll do another nudge, and then we'll go on. But I agree. I've launched 2 different businesses from the power of magnetic marketing, and basically it was go to the swipe file and get ideas. And one of them was launched through direct response, direct mail, and we were mailing to physicians. So you talk about a group that is highly scientific and really elongated business process. But there is so much stuff there. There are phenomenal swipes that are there, B2B, B2C, service business. So it's something for everyone that's there. And the important thing, like you said, is artfully and tactically stealing or swiping and deploying is what you need to
swipe and deploy. Isn't that like that's like a regular Dan Kennedy
That's
feature?
what we do. Yeah, it's part of the newsletter. So we don't want you just to, unless you get the copyright free stuff, you can't just steal somebody else's work, but you could use it as ideas, and you could get ideas. And there's truth in that. And you and I were talking a lot about Halbert in the beginning, right? There is the importance, he said, is you need the raving fans, you need the starving crowd if you want to sell hamburgers. But I also agree that there is a rhythm of a good sales marketing piece. There is rhythm in copy.
I love that. I love that word, rhythm. Love that.
It's like a great story. It's a great book. You don't want to put
it is storytelling. I love like Don Miller's story brand. I mean, he's not a copywriter, and then Ray Edwards put some copywriting stuff on top of that. Nothing better than story. Marty used to always say he wants copy that makes him vibrate.
Right. And we talked about that with Dan when we did the I think it was either with Rich or somebody else, and the importance of what we'll call the exchange with the person. You guys did it so well, and he called you guys out on it, is even if they didn't buy the product or service that you were selling, the copy and the advertising made them feel good. They learned something. So there was an exchange that they paid forward. You paid it forward with your such good copywriting that they said, here's another piece. Here's the second piece from that. I didn't buy the last one, but I'm going to invest in this one because I learned something from their last piece or their pieces. And so therefore, let
me hitch on to that. Really important concept. So when I came into the business, it was like you always sell the sizzle, not the steak. So you wouldn't give away anything. Then we developed the magalogs, and the magalogs, we started giving away 5 tips, and here are 3, and for the other 2, you have to buy the book, that type of thing. But we gave away real content. People, the shelf life on a bookalog or a magalog, which were big direct mail formats, would sit on people's nightstands for weeks. And that's why the tail on response to those mailings were a lot longer, because the actual mailing piece had value. Fast forward, online, so inexpensive to like product launch formula.
Right.
What is product launch formula about? It's about, Jeff Walker will tell you it's a copywriting direct marketing, thing where PLCs, pre-launch content, you want to give away your best stuff.
Right.
Give away a lot of your, I know Dan and I differ a little bit on this about giving away your best stuff, but I think that you're in a position to make the promotion valuable, as you said. And that's a change. When I got into the business, you never gave away the steak, always the sizzle only. And now we've come up with incredible formats and online techniques where you can give away a lot of steak and still have them still be really hungry, which is really a wonderful, wonderful thing. And that's one of the beauties of incorporating online into everything that we do. So really important point about, creating value, even if they don't buy from you the first time.
Right. We could go on forever. I know you got something to do, and I appreciate your time. We want you guys to invest in magnetic marketing. We want to provide good value. Hopefully we provided great content and great value on this call, this interview, as well as all the other ones in the pre-video interviews with Dan. So invest now. Make an effort to just click on the button off to your right, or give us a call, 1-800-871-0147. Once again, 1-800-871-0147. Bryan, you want to do a couple more questions, or do you?
Sure, I'll do whatever you want. I just let you know, I'm it's like I'm like the president of the company. It's like I can't buy the company, but I'm buying versions of magnetic marketing for my masterclass group that's meeting in Cleveland next April. So,
Right.
It's valuable stuff. It's one of those programs that needs to be like, just like the book that I republished, Breakthrough Advertising by Gene Schwartz. It's one of those things that needs to be on your shelf.
Right.
It needs to be in your files. It just has to be there. It just has to be there.
So let's go to the one of the things that we are talking about is the importance of strategy, and people get caught up in the tactics of marketing, right? And the difference of tactics versus strategy. So let's they get excited about the whiz bang tactic of the day, and it's all about the strategy. So how do you put the brakes on somebody that just is rushing to want to just run right to tactics or whiz bang tactics? So the guy in the bathroom that's going to get you your neck, when you come to Info Summit, the guy in the bathroom, he's going to charge up to you and just want to talk about tactics. How do you get him to talk about strategy, and how should people be looking at their strategy?
I think I touched on it a little bit, but I'll go a little deeper. I think that, again, when you're assessing your assets, using the term that I like to use,
Sure.
Don't start with media. Even though I said list is the most important thing, but don't start with media. Start with, what's your big vision? What, Todd Brown talks about this, what's your big idea? And I think that it's not just strategy. It's sort of like, if you focused on, those big fundamentals of, 40-40-20 RFM and lifetime value, first, as you start thinking about your product, you start thinking about your assets, meaning what list you have, who's on your list, where are they buying from you. Those are more strategic questions. And so if someone came up to me and said, I got to get on Facebook, who's the best expert? I'd say, okay, we'll get there. And it's funny because what you say is sort of like where I get hung up, because people who are members of my 2 mastermind groups, I want to get them exposed to everything.
Right.
But I want to do it one step at a time. I don't want to have them drink from a fire hose, although they end up per meeting, they do. But as I said, I've had Nicholas Kuzmich speak. I've had Josh Turner speak on LinkedIn. I've had Dylan Frost speak about Amazon. I'm gonna have people speak about Story Brand, Ray Edwards. So Todd Brown about his funnel system. So I think what I would tell that person is, let's get educated one medium at a time, while you always have that umbrella of your big idea. And then I would say, read some of the classic books. I'm not saying my book is the be all end all, but I basically got the greatest hits from 6 of the greatest legends of all time. That's what Craig and I had in mind.
Yeah.
So, the advertising solution, which you get at thelegendsbook.com, is a book that is a kind of a shortcut, so you don't have to read all of those people cover to cover, but you can start getting, there's a checklist in there for your sales letters. Like, get that done. Get what Gary Halbert talked about, what Gene Schwartz talked, get that stuff handled in your mind, taking notes. Breakthrough Advertising is another book that I sell because I have the rights to it. It's an advanced book on copy because it's more about human behavior, but understand that stuff first. So when we say strategy, I do want you to understand, I want people to understand that big picture, adapting it to the media, again, adapting your idea to the technique. That's the part where you just have to then get educated from the specialists on each of those media choices. But I think you've got to read the great books. You've got to study things like magnetic marketing. You've got to do that stuff because that's going to give you the bedrock that's going to be able to understand better when you get somebody who's a Facebook agency and what questions you're going to ask them about the model you want to do. Or when you're going to advertise. I want to get this. There's a YouTube company, expert that's an expert on YouTube. I'm really fascinated by using YouTube as a marketing channel. And so I want to get the expert. It's funny. I think I could sum it up by saying this was the philosophy that Boardroom had in their books, in our books and newsletters. I can't say our anymore, but the books and newsletters that I sold. And it was basically what's hot in the world. So let's say investing in term life insurance in whole life insurance with a long-term care rider, which got hot as an investment, is really hot, and I want to share that with my audience. How do I go about that? And so then we would go out and do the research and find the number one expert in long-term care / whole life investment insurance. And then we'd interview them, and that's who we do the article on. I think that philosophy is one that should be part of everybody's marketing program. Finding that hot button in the marketplace. This is about Gene Schwartz when he talks about, where's the mass desire? It's out there. You just have to tap into it. And then once you find it, figure out where those people are swimming, what pools they're swimming in, and then find the expert to buy you that media, whether it's the direct mail list broker or Craig Simpson, or whether it's the Facebook person like Nicholas Kuzmich, or, again, whatever it is. But I think that's the approach that I would give to the guy in the bathroom saying, how do I get on Facebook?
Sure. All right, my man. We're gonna say goodbye. You were gracious with your time. I got literally 5 pages of notes as we're going. Oh. It's not just about what you pay it forward. You're a give back guy. I'm gonna send you something, but I'm also gonna send you a ticket to Info Summit so you can hang out in the bathroom. If folks,
what an offer that is.
Yeah, I mean, what more can you ask for? So if you want to come to Info Summit, buy your ticket. You can meet Bryan in the bathroom. Everybody that you've mentioned is speaking at this Info Summit, which is phenomenal, or has spoken at past ones. So Robin Robbins is going to be, she's a class by herself. She's a phenomenal entrepreneur, phenomenal executive. She's speaking. Rich Sheffron's speaking. Nicholas Kumach is speaking. Ryan Levesque, right? We talked a little bit about Ask in the beginning, and maybe that was in the pre-show.
I'm proud. I'm one of the 2 blurbs on the back of that book. It's a great book.
He's a phenomenal guy, and we're excited.
Amazing guy.
And actually, when we had Bill Glazer in our office, he was excited to see that Ryan was there because he wants to meet them. Josh Turner, I know he's going to actually be at Super Conference next year.
He's the guy. As far as LinkedIn goes, he's the guy.
He's top shelf. And then Tom Breeze. You said you want to learn more about YouTube. We got Tom Breeze, who's one of the experts. He's from the UK, so everything he says sounds really.
I think I got to meet Tom Breeze now that you mentioned it.
So we're going to have him there, and he's a sharp guy. He's actually been on our stage twice. I think he's doing 2 different segments on YouTube. So I'll send you a ticket. I got something coming to you for your time because you've been about an hour and a half into this. Guys, we want you to buy Magnetic Marketing. Bryan doesn't do this for everyone, but he's been gracious with his time, and he's been gracious with his praise. If you by now haven't made a decision to buy Magnetic Marketing and have it on your bookshelf, I don't know what I could say. I really don't, but I want you to buy it. 1-800-871-0147, or just click on the button. Give us a call. Maybe you got some individual circumstances you got to talk it through with us. We're here to help you because we believe in this. This has done so much for me. I want it on your bookshelf. 1-800-871-0147, or click on the button right to the right. Click on that button. Thank you, Bryan. We'll see you at Info Summit. Thank you for your time. And you made me look at the back of Derek Jeter. The Cubs clinched today. So
no, that's not Derek Jeter. That's Mariano Rivera. Rivera.
Sorry.
And not only that there's a story behind that, which I won't be. If you go to my website and click on the video, competition is coexistence.
Okay.
Or actually, you have to go to my blog page, but you can get there. BryanKurtz.me/blog. But you can get why Mariano Rivera is on the back behind me.
All right, but first go to Magnetic Marketing, click on that, then
go to Magnetic Marketing. All
right, and then BryanKurtz.me is the place to find them, or thelegendsbook.com. The Advertising Solution is a great book. I highly recommend it. I've read it. It's underlined. I got 2 copies. One because they always come and take my copy in the office, so I got one at home that's under lock and key. Bryan, we'll see you at Info Summit. Thank you, everybody, for listening. I hope you enjoyed this series. This has been, they've all been great. I've had Ben Glass, who we've mentioned. We've had Rich Sheffron on. We've had a lot of really good folks, and it's amazing to me when you have a product that everybody owes their success to, how they come and they say, I really want to spend some time with your members, with your listeners, with your customers, with your
Oh, I was
prospects.
so excited you were bringing it back. I really was. Really
I mean,
was.
so thank you. And take care, everyone. Once again, 1-800-871-0147, or click on the button. And Bryan, we'll see you at Info Summit. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.